Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of this week's podcast. This week, I'm going to keep it nice and short. And I wanted to invite Whillan on to have a conversation about where he's looking for to go in the next couple of years, and where he started, what he's planning to do, how he's been finding consuming my content, and just that kind of thing. So, hope you guys are going to enjoy this interview. I'm going to shut up and let him explain who he is a little bit more and enjoy the interview. I'll see you very soon.
Right, so my name is Willam14. I am a college student at Wiltshire College, Salisbury campus, and I'm studying film and TV. I would not like to go into the industry in the sense of like starting as a runner and then moving up slightly. I like the idea of making what I want to make when I want. And if I have an idea, just going and acting on it.
So how have you building off the going on acting on it situation, how have you kind of found that process, I guess, is the question there. But have you sort of, because a lot of people when they start, they're like, oh, we need to do this. There's a lot of planning involved, there's a lot of this, there's a lot of that, Have you found the kind of more gung-ho way of creating is sometimes beneficial?
I find it beneficial in parts and unorganized in some parts. So there was a music video that me and my brother did whilst we were at college for A Boy Named Sue, the Johnny Cash song. And before we started making it, we sat down and we looked at the lyrics and worked out a narrative to work through for the video. And it was a very structured video. We worked out what lyrics we were going to pair with what videos and how it was going to be set. And me and him still believe to this day that that is our best narrative based music video. We've made other things, but they haven't been narrative focused. They've just kind of been like cutting a couple of clips to music. So I think if you're trying to make an organized piece of work that you want to really have a lot of structure and substance to it, it allows you to not have to think about what you're doing whilst you're on the go. It allows you to just know what you've got to do and be able to make it almost without any consequences. Obviously, there's things that come up whilst you're shooting, little problems like that, and you've got to sort them out as they come. But when you've got it planned out all beforehand, you don't have to worry about anything. But on the other hand, the thing that I like about just doing what I want when I want, that gung-ho approach, is that I can, I find it quite difficult to do things like storyboards, because I find that if I've got an idea in my head, I will go until that idea either doesn't work or does work, because I find it difficult to display my thoughts on paper and things like that. So and communicating with other people is something that I have a difficulty with as well. So being in a group and it's obviously something that I need to work on, but being in a group and going, okay, so I'm going to do this, you can go away and do this, I find difficult sometimes. So it's a long way of saying, if you want structure, plan what you've got to do, and if you don't, then just run with it.
No, I think it also kind of depends on the kind of content you're making though as well, right? Like, as we were discussing a little bit beforehand, a lot of the podcasts at the start were very, right, we're going to interview a business owner, right? It's this question. And for me, I do projects like that all the time, and it really depends on, okay, like more a business term, it depends on how much money's on the line, right? Firstly. Secondly, what is the piece? Do we know what the piece wants to do? Do we know exactly what the client themselves, do they know specifically what they want to do, right? Just recently quoted a job where we're doing some interviews, we're doing some B-roll, we're doing some establishing shots, we're doing some bits and bobs, right? So they're very aware of what they want, right? But I also have clients that are like, we'd love to do video that does this, but then they have nothing else outside that. Right, so
yeah,
it's one of those things where, as a video creator, and I think you'll find this as well, that you will eventually develop to a point where you're kind of learn a middle ground, right? Where I have this plan. It could go really well. It could work really well. And plans are good to have for bigger projects or even medium-sized projects. But the thing is, you also need to be very willing to scrap that entire plan and go with what your gut says and go with what your instincts say, because there's a lot of situations, especially in film production, that I'm sure you've run into, or if you haven't specifically, you will. I promise you now, you will. That is like, oh, okay, this entire plan requires 3 people. Oh, there's 2 of us. Oh, that's exciting. Right. How do we fix this problem? Okay, how can we tweak the plan? Is there shots that we physically can't do? And I remember multiple projects in the last year that have been like, great, we have all these plans, and then we can't do it because of X, Y, and Z reason. It's raining. The location we actually were thinking about having can't be used for X, Y, Z reason, right? Or the actors which we were expecting to show up haven't. Right, okay. Or a lens or a camera's broken or whatever, right? There's 1,000 different things that can go wrong and will go wrong, right? And the more experience you have at dealing with those problems, I would say the more experience you have and the better you will become at being able to deal with those problems. None of them are ever easy to deal with, right? But the more you are in a situation where you're like, oh, that's exciting, something broke. Okay, let's see how we can resolve the situation which has been occurred by that, in that respect. So I think for me it's interesting to hear, because I think we've discussed this privately. I think it was either me and Sam or me and you or both. And we'll come on to Sam a little bit in a moment as well if you want. But for me it's been interesting to watch you guys sort of, I use the term experiment with vlogs and experiment with content and experiment with what you can do, right? Because I think I've said this before, but it reminds me a lot of what I did during, I want to say 2018. Start of 2018, towards the end of 2017, that kind of thing. That just raw, absolute passion for, I want to create something, not because I'm getting paid, not because I'm just, I want to do it, right? Because it's fun. I want to do it because I want to experiment. I want to do this. I want to see if I like it, right? So how have you been, I guess the questions are there of like, firstly, how have you been finding that? And secondly, what was the kind of first, motivation or the first point where you were really in a situation where you really wanted to do those vlogs or really wanted to do those pieces of content?
I first started making content in, I think it was 2016 or 2017. I on my channel still, I've got the gaming videos that I was doing. I would come home from school and record a video, then edit a video, and then go to bed, and then go to school, and then the cycle continued. And I didn't do it because I wanted to blow up on YouTube and be the biggest person with 20 mil subscribers and getting paid loads. I really enjoyed playing the games and making videos out of it, because I found that I enjoyed making it, and if I could bring other people happiness and maybe make somebody else's day a bit nicer if they watched a video of mine, then I thought that was a really nice way to go about it. And then there was a point where I was making, it's weird talking about it because obviously it seems like so long ago for me, but there was a point I was making Fortnite wins and fails videos on my channel, and I was every single day I was school, record, edit, sleep, school, record, edit, sleep. And it got to a point after about I think it was 2 months or so, I just couldn't physically do it anymore, and I burnt myself out because of it. And after that point, I just kind of took a step back, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to take a break for a while. I'm always open to the possibility of coming back to this. But as I wasn't trying to make a job out of it, I could come and go when I pleased. And then I started the film course, and as soon as I started editing again, I was like, bang, editing, this is so much fun. Because I used to edit on a program called Share Factory. I spoke about it in one of my vlogs that was on the PlayStation. And I was making videos on there. And then Sam said to me once, he was like, you're making relatively good content on a PlayStation. Imagine what you could do if you actually had software that's supposed to do these things. And that kind of stuck with me a bit. And then, like I say, as soon as I got into the editing again, I was just immediately on it. I was constantly experimenting with like different things that I could do, like denoising if there's background noise, and um, messing with cool effects and stuff like that. And then I I cut so Logan Paul, for instance, he I never really used to enjoy his content. And then after all of this stuff, I won't go into it obviously, but after all the stuff that he went through, he kind of like matured up, and he went on a Russell Brand podcast, and you could tell that he'd really grown up and his content had grown up with him. And then he started making vlogs again, and they were so interesting and fun to watch. Um, and I really enjoyed them. And I was like, oh, vlogging's really interesting and fun. It's like, and then I kind of like, I knew about Casey Neistat beforehand, but I'd never like gone into his content. And I started watching Casey Neistat, and I watched so many of the videos that's like, how do I vlog, and things like this. And just watching them was trying, I think he said something like, the way that I make my vlogs isn't making my life interesting, it's trying to find a 3-act structure throughout my day, and making the vlog interesting in that way. And then I started like dabbling in the vlog, and it took a lot more than I thought it would, like being on camera, because I never used to use cameras when I recorded. Being on camera and like being in public on camera as well, that was a really big thing. So like in my first vlog, I just kind of did everything whilst I was at home, and then I think I did like 2 clips whilst I was outside, I think, just because I was so uncomfortable with being on camera. And then as they've got on, I've got a bit more comfortable and pushed myself to get new goals and new achievements from my vlogs for personal stuff that I do. So um, like okay, so when it came to the No Sleep music video I did, I was like, right, I want to make a good music video with loads of effects. And I was staying up like all night for like a week or so, just learning how to do effects and then creating them. And one thing that's so interesting about editing for me is that when you do it right, nobody is supposed to notice. But when you do it wrong, it's something that everybody picks up, because it's like almost jarring in a sense. Um, and I find that making smooth content and learning the process of how to improve on it on like a daily basis is something that's really interesting to me. And I think that's one of the things that allows me to keep making content, because I make a vlog, I edit it, and then by the time I finished editing the vlog, I'm already better than I was before I'd edited the vlog. So for me at the moment, it's just kind of like learning what I can and can't do, and learning the boundaries of my own abilities.
No, absolutely. I think that, I think that's something which, as long as you hold on to, personally, I've been doing that for years, and something which I think has allowed me to grow to the point where I'm at today is because I'd never look at what I did yesterday and go, yeah, that's good enough, right? I always look at, okay, that cut could have been cleaner, or that shot could have been cleaner, or that shot could have been smoother, or why did I do that shot that way, or why did we frame it that way, or, what's the issue with the audio? How could the audio be cleaner? How could the visual be, whatever it is, right? And always looking at, okay, firstly, what is the content? Why am I doing it? And how is it beneficial to whoever's going to consume it? And then also, how do we make it look and sound as best as it could, right? I relate with a lot of what you're saying, because there's, and the concept of like, I'm going to learn this effect, and then you end up not using the effect, is something that most people would say, what waste of time. But it's not, because you then know how to use that effect. And I think that you're going through an interesting process at the moment, because for possible obvious reasons, possible not obvious reasons, you're deliberately, I would say, teaching yourself to learn multiple different editing programs and editing suites. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process and why and how that has been for you? Because I think that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Because personally, like from hindsight perspective, I've personally edited on Premiere since the age of 14, to now being 23, right? So I know Premiere I would probably say like pretty well, I would hope, right? I spent a large amount of time learning it. I can basically edit with my eyes shut at this point. And there's not a lot I don't know how to do in Premiere. There's of course things I can optimize, but there's not a lot I don't know what it can do. But that's also a hindsight, because it's one of those things where I'm very reluctant to want to change or want to go to a different platform, simply because I have to relearn and start from scratch. And yeah, of course I have the basics of editing, right, and the concept of editing down, but I would still have to learn all of the what does this button do, how does this do it, and learning that software. Yes, I could probably learn it a lot faster than, say, 14-year-old me, sure. But it's still time that it would take me to warm up to the concept of it doing it. So yeah, I mean, how is the process? Have you found learning different softwares? Secondly, have you found there's benefits to, say, for example, using DaVinci over Premiere or vice versa? And also, do you think you will have, or possibly will be, making a decision on which you will actually stay with longer term?
Okay, so switching through editing softwares. So I went from Share Factory on my PlayStation, and then I started at college, and because it was much more serious and professional, a more professional environment than just sitting in my bedroom and making videos, they gave us the opportunity to use a more professional software, and that was really nice. And then it was like the little things like actually being able to put effects in and like keyframing stuff and doing really little details, and the smoothness of a professional software over a PlayStation software. And then throughout lockdown, we had Premiere, and we were making vlogs, making videos, doing all of it. And then recently we got a countdown notification on all of our Adobe apps saying, what was it? It was your Adobe license has expired. You have 7 days to until you have to stop using it. And that was a bit of a smack in the face, to be honest, because I got quite used to how Premiere was working, and like the things like one of the differences for Premiere and DaVinci that I found is, like, instead of pressing C to bring up your cut tool, you press B to bring up the blade. And I understand that you can like change the keyboard shortcuts and around, but it's just the tiny little things that you have to learn. So the softwares that I've used are Share Factory, Premiere Pro. I've used HitFilm Express, DaVinci now, and I started teaching myself After Effects, as you know, because I wanted to make like Star Wars edits and stuff like that. So I think there is nothing bad. There is nothing that you can lose from broadening your spectrum of knowledge from multiple different areas of sources. One thing that stuck with me is that if you draw all your information from one source, it will grow stale. So if you, for instance, like only edited on Premiere for the rest of your life, you might not understand that there's other things that you can do with other programs. And there might be better things or worse things, but there's nothing wrong with experimenting and finding the new things. And the other day, I was saying to my brother Sam, I was like, "Oh, you should get DaVinci. It's really nice." And he was like, "Yeah, I'll download it." And then he tried it, and he went, "I'm not in the space to learn a new software right now." So he downloaded Hit Film because it's so similar to Premiere, and edited on that. And he was like, this is the space that I'm in at the moment. I'm in the space that I just want to edit, and that's it. I don't want to have to, pardon me, I don't want to have to learn a new software
And also trying to learn, exactly,
whilst
and also
making a
trying
new
to,
video.
understand the why you should cut here, how you should cut, why, etc. The basics of editing, or the basics is the wrong word, but the fundamentals around how to cut, why to cut, and why you put a clip in a video and over a clip you don't, right? And I think that's a very good point. I think that's something which a lot of people would think about, question, specifically in some cases will look at, I need to learn everything right now. No, you don't. Take one thing, learn it, then take the next thing, learn it, take the next thing, learn it, right? So, it goes from shooting, right? Of course, there has to be some, there has to be a process, right? You film a video, you edit a video, you upload a video, you release a video, you repeat, right? Yes, of course, there's that process, but at each one of those processes, you can say, right, what do I need to get better at? Okay, I need to get better at exposing each shot correctly within camera, right? So I have to do less work in post. It just looks better in general if you do it in camera, as you know, right? So for the next 5 videos that I make, I'm going to only focus on making sure my exposure for each shot, I'm going to, spend another 2 minutes or another 5 minutes or however long it is to make sure my exposure is pretty the same across all the shots, and my white balance is right, and my settings are right, and the settings are correct, and blah, 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 and whatever, right? And then once you're okay with that, you then go, right, okay, I want to make some more cinematic stuff. Okay, cool. What are the characteristics that make something cinematic? Okay, cool. The motion's really smooth. Okay, cool. Let's work on getting smooth motion. How does that work? What are the tricks I can use to actually get smooth motion if I'm hand holding, for example? Or what pieces of equipment would I look to get if I was looking to get equipment? It's not always about what gear. That's a separate topic all in itself. But it's about just sort of then breaking it down into manageable chunks instead of trying to swallow the whole thing in one go. For those who would be interested and who may not know of your and Sam's friendship, relationship, how you work together, how you don't, how you know each other. Those because we haven't actually gone over it. Sam's tag is snowy film, snowy photography, something like that. Snowy photography. And the reason why I mention him a lot is because he came on the podcast would have been 3 to 4 episodes ago now, and I think it's interesting to hear it from your side about how that relationship kind of is, how it works, how it is, how you're able to help each other from a filmmaking perspective, but also how you're able to see what he's doing and go, oh, I love that, but I don't like that. And then I guess the follow-up would be, then how does our kind of relationship or how does my content influence what you do as well, if it does? This is more question for me, but I think it's also going to be interesting for people who are listening, because it's an interesting, for me, I like to hear how people consume content and how that then affects their content, if that makes sense.
Okay, so me and Sam are brothers. We have been like best friends for all of time, really. We had difficulties when we were living in the same house, but I'm sure all siblings do. But we sorted some, like, they weren't like major issues, but like little things, like for instance, when we went to Berlin, we were with each other like 100% of the time from wake up to go to sleep. And then after the week of being in Berlin, I wanted to end his life and he felt the exact same. So one thing that we struggle with is like spending too much time with each other, and that having a negative effect on our personal relationship and other things that we take part in. So what me and Sam try to do is, the thing that we find so interesting is how we obviously spend a lot of time together. Like on a Tuesday, I'll go into Salisbury and I will make a vlog. He will make a vlog, most likely. And for the Alice's birthday vlog, that was the title of his, and I Crashed My Drone was the title of mine. We were doing the exact same thing throughout the day, but I found that with the two videos, it gave a completely different perspective, because even though we spend a lot of time together, we are individually different in aspects. So, like, for instance, in his videos, he likes to use a lot of B-roll, and he's working on getting really cinematic B-roll. And at the moment, I'm trying to make vlogs that have a little bit more narrative and talking to the camera a bit more to allow people to flow through the day almost in one. I forgot
That's
what I was
fine.
going to say.
You know, but I think that's an interesting dynamic to have, and there's difference to thing. And I think you'll find as you both move on in what you're trying to do, that you'll be able to bounce off each other, right? Because you'll have more experience with doing more talking head stuff, and he'll have more experience with B-roll stuff. So you'll be able to teach each other and kind of bounce off ideas in that respect. How have you found? I'll use me as the example, but you could choose any example you like. How have you found consuming others' content? The main reason why I use me as an example is I think it's interesting because we both, in most cases, film in Salisbury, right? And we mostly use Salisbury as our main location, pretty much, to film. So how have you found? Okay, firstly, is other Salisbury creators' content, could be mine, could be anyone's, changing how you look to do your own content, one, and two, more specifically regarding my content, how have you found that process from a consuming perspective? Because for me, that's very, very valuable to hear, because I rarely get to hear it, and two, it also allows me to really understand what stuff hits home and what stuff doesn't. And if it doesn't, why doesn't it? And then how can I better what I'm doing, right? In the respect to, is it a podcast? Is it a vlog? Is it this, that, whatever? You know, whatever it is, it allows me to then really fine tune what is the valuable snippets of content within the content.
Consuming content from Salisbury in particular, but just kind of in general. The thing that's very interesting is how people take information from loads of different places and then kind of like mash it all up into one and clean up the rough edges and then make something of their own. Everybody has kind of like one thing. You can have more than one, but everybody has like at least one quality about their content or about their personality that makes somebody go, yeah, that makes them them. And I think that like I say, if you take other people's stuff, like the things that you think, yeah, I think I could build up on that, but not just completely rip off. And then kind of like, if there's something you don't particularly like, just maybe not completely ignore it, but figure out what it is about it that you don't particularly identify with. And with your content, I find that you're a very professional person. I was incredibly surprised to see on Instagram the other day. I think your birthday a couple of weeks ago. I might get this wrong, but I believe you said you were 23. Like, to me, that's mad because you're so professional in what you do, and your content, in my opinion, is more client based than obviously me, because I don't have clients. You're a very mature person, and your content follows that as well, which makes it a joy to watch, because I find that watching people that are just very childish, once you kind of like peak the point of the kind of like age maturity level that they're creating content at, you lose interest. So with you, there's like little things in your videos that I really, really like. So there was a video that you did. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was showing something about Salisbury being in lockdown, I believe.
Would have been Stay
And there
Strong. Well, I did
was,
three. I did three sets of videos regarding lockdown. The first of which was Stay Strong Salisbury, which I think is the one you're referring to.
yeah. And in that video, there was something that I really, really liked about it. I don't know if you did it in post or in real life with your camera, but when you finished up with a clip, you'd like drag it really quickly to like, and then cut in between it, I think is what you did. And I found that such an interesting way, because it was almost like doing a motion blurred transition, but you had done it whilst you were there. There was nothing that was unnatural about it. And like how you do clients, and you make your clients happy, and add with every like clientele video that you do, there is what the client wants, and then there is like your flair and your style mixed in with it. And I think you're really, really good at balancing what the client wants with what you think would be good as well.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, that's really great to hear personally, because it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I'm still in some ways trying to get my head around the fact that people will pay me to play around with the camera, because that's all I'm doing. Of course, there's a lot more involved with that, but at a base level, it's me playing around with the camera, right? That is all I'm doing. In regards to the kind of motion blurry transition, it's a in-camera transition with a cut. That's it. You do a whip pan to right or left, and then you do a whip pan on the other clip, and you cut in the motion blur, so no one can see the clip because it's blurred. It's a style which I like to do, but I think now I've done it a lot, and I'm probably going to, and you'll see as content progresses through the next year, that I will move away from that transition, or that set of transitions. And that's not because they're not good to do. It's just I've got to a point where I know how to do it very, very well. I know how easy it can be to do, and it's now something I'll put and do for a specific kind of video when it suits the video, right? And now I'm going to work on other ways to transition, a more seamless or less seamless, or depending on the, I'll be exploring other options of how to actually transition from clip to clip. Because for me, it's one of those things where I could just do that, but I don't want it to be this kind of, we've seen this before, it's not exciting, right? Because I can show it to you like 5 times, you'll be like, wow, that's really cool. But after maybe 10 times, you're like, okay, this is boring now, right? Because you've seen it, and you don't have that kind of wow factor in that respect as well. So it's more, for me, it's also about learning, and this kind of builds up what we were talking about before. It kind of always experimenting and seeing what works. And for me, how I use a lot of my content is a kind of breeding ground for my ideas, in the respect to, I have this crazy idea for a shot and I have no idea if it's going to work, but let's give it a go, see if it works. And if it does, I'll take it into client projects, or into bigger videos, or into, whatever I'm doing in that respect. So, for me, overall, it's been very interesting to, as I say, hear from people who consume my content, and seeing what bits they really, what really resonates with them. But then also, how they have, in some ways, how people who have definitely followed my journey from, a year to 2 years to 3 to 4, etc. in that respect as well, has actually seen my development as well, right? Because I see a lot of the kind of content you're creating now as content that I, as I said at the start, that I was creating in 2018, early 2018, late 2017. And like, I say that in respect to, I hope that in some ways gives you kind of a roadmap, or gives you an idea, or gives you hope that through sheer determination of making thousands of videos, you will be able to get to a point where you may be able to look at it as a genuine career that will be able to make money from, right? In that respect, yes, you're not there now. Yes, you're not there because of X, Y, and Z, right? But there will be a point where, as long as you keep learning and keep developing and keep wanting to, that you will be able to develop to the point where you will be able to find your own clientele list, so to speak. And there's a lot involved in that process, and that's a topic multiple topics all in itself. But it's also about, from a content perspective, you need to be willing to, from my opinion anyway, be able to create content consistently that's high quality to be able to stand out from everyone else. Because if you can outlast every other person who calls himself a videographer or is a photographer that does video or whatever, but you are consistently putting out more higher quality content than they are, then you will in most cases attract the clients or whatever in that respect, because you will just be up there and you'll be around more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really important to keep in your awareness and keep in your mind so that you know it is that for instance, if you were trying to make it on YouTube, YouTube is such a saturated hub of content, and every single person's got talent. But if you've got the hard work and determination to want to go, this is what I want to do and this is what I will do, you are going to have such a higher chance of actually doing what you want to do, because kind of anybody could pick up a camera, put it on auto and get a nice picture, post it on Instagram. But it's when you start with the hard work and you go, okay, so I want a further understanding of how I can improve my content. I'm going to start learning about ISO, start learning about aperture and the things like that, and making sure that you are constantly evolving with it. And like you said earlier, you're not just making one thing going, yeah, that's good, I think I'm going to stay there. You want to grow. You want to be what you want to be, because you have that hard work and backing from your confidence in yourself. That is what will ultimately get you to your end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where it comes down to the fact that, some people just see videography as a job, right? And I get that. I can understand that completely. But for me, and the reason why I've been quote unquote successful is because I have taken it those extra steps that I feel is required nowadays. I go the extra mile to really understand, if I'm working with a client, okay, well, what do they do and how does video fit what they do? Because it's not the question of if video fits, it's how, right? It's like, okay, I have two triangles and a circle. Where are their triangle holes and where are their circle holes, right? That it's not of where are it's not their holes don't exist to put the shapes in. They do. You just got to find them, right? And every client's different, and that's why taking the time, and that's what not a lot of people are willing to do, because they're very transactional. They don't necessarily are willing to take the time to really get to know that business owner or that business. Because if you really, obviously you're not going to know the business better than the business owner, of course not, right? Because the only person who knows their business the best is them, right? But you should be the second or third person that knows their business if you're going to work with them for content wise, because it's very important to understand, firstly, what their values are, and secondly, how does as I was saying before, how does video fit to do what they want to do? And that's why one of the first questions I ask a client, especially a new client, is what do you want video to do for you? Do you want it to increase your revenue? Do you want it to increase your reputation? Do you want it to allow you to put out a certain message or a certain narrative or a certain you're launching a set or you're launching a product or you're launching a service? This is going to be the catalyst to how you launch it. Okay, fine. All of those things are possible, and all those things are what video can do for you. But if you don't know in specific what that client is expecting, and also then from your side as well, explaining what that process looks like, and I find the more you can be a time saver and also make it effortless to help them create content, the more content they'll want to create, right? Because if you think about it this way, they see content as brick walls, right? Because a lot of business owners or a lot of people who I talk to love the idea of creating content, but they have no idea where to start, right? So you're not just a videographer, from how I've tackled it, right? there is trades where you can just be a videographer, right? But from the perspective of I've taken is you should be in a situation where you're able to explain and talk their language in the respect to this is the net result, or this is this is what you want to achieve, and this is how video helps you achieve that, or this is how content helps you achieve that, right? Like, for example, I want to increase how well known my brand is or business is, right? Okay, well, this is how video helps you do that, right? Because it brings more eyeballs, it brings more attention, it can show, if done correctly, your business or your brand or your service in the best light that it is. And part of videographers' jobs and photographers' jobs is to illuminate those parts that are the best and not completely hide the the optimal bits or the bits that every business has, but just make sure they're in the shadow. Right? They're, of course, there and everyone understands they're there, but it's not necessarily about not saying they don't exist. Acknowledging they exist, but also then forcing, or not forcing is the wrong word, but helping the viewer's attention to be specifically looking at what you want them to look at instead of something else, right? In that respect, I hope that makes sense. But, I'd be interested to sort of hear from you about where I'm going to use a really cliche question, right? And I don't like using cliche questions because I don't like answering them personally. So I know that's why I don't like asking them. But the cliche question is like you get in an interview all the time. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? But I think there's a lot of value there to understand if you don't now know where you want to be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, where you could be. But then also because if you don't know that, you don't know how to push in the correct direction, right? So if you don't know, theorize, but I have a suspicion right?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I'm not doing this to have a short game. I don't have a short-term goal. My long-term goal is not necessarily be a massive celebrity, not be the best content creator in the world. I want to be at a more advanced level of what I am now, but so that I can make other people happy with my content, but keep the continuity of the enjoyment for it of myself. So not to go, yeah, I want to make money out of this and then do like everything other people want and forget about myself. I have to keep myself entertained and refreshed every single time I make something, as to not lose the enjoyment and lose my goals. And I don't really know how to answer the question fully, but like I say, I think a further level of understanding of everything that I do and more things that I will pick up in the years is where I want to be in 5 years. Because in the grand scheme of things, 5 years isn't a lot of time. Like for me, at the moment, I'm relatively young, and five years for me is not that much. So I hope that I have just become like just better, and I hope that I don't lose the fact that I enjoy what I make. My YouTube biography, is it called, or is it the about page? On there it says, if the ting bangs, I'll post it. And for me that just means if I turn on the camera one day and I'm like, right, I want to make an F1 video, I make an F1 video. If I want to make a whatever, it doesn't matter. But if I feel like I want to make something, I will do my utmost to fulfill my happiness and my idea and goal surrounding that. So maybe what I actually want is to be able to set goals and answer them, instead of making goals and going, yeah, I'll get that when I get here.
No, I mean, that's interesting to hear, because I mean, and the personal bit of advice that jumped to me when you said about wanting to enjoy and continue to enjoy, I think something which and I've been there, and I think he will be there. And what lockdown? We didn't really touch on lockdown, but I feel that's being a bit of a dead horse at this point. That's why I haven't, right? But for me, lockdown was a kind of, right, you're pushing for all these clients and doing all this for all these clients, but what are you doing for you? Right? Now, I've always been doing content for me, but that's not building something that could serve me as an income source, could serve me as a passion-driven fulfillment thing, as well. And that's something that I sort of looked within lockdown, and part of the reason why I have wanted to and continue to do this podcast is one. Two, the reason why I've sort of been a lot more active on YouTube and doing that kind of content and that kind of thing. And also I found it's kind of given me a lot more freedom to feel like I don't need to, in some ways, chase clients all the time, because I'm a lot busier than I was when my main focus was, right, we got to get clients. And that's important, right? And I still have days like today where I literally, before this recording, as you know, I literally have done nothing all day but send emails, phone people, run the business, right? The boring admin day, the thing that brings in projects to pay the bills, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to have those, right? Otherwise you can't do it. Right, long term you can't. Right, you have to have a way to make money. Right, but the reason why this links to your point was, I wish I had started this process when I was further along and kept doing it. I did it, but I didn't do it consistently enough. And I think it'd be in a very different space now and during lockdown if I had continued it. So my only advice would be, always, no matter how busy you get, make time for your own creation. And your own creations, whether that's, I'm going to make a music video because I want to, or I'm going to make an F1 video because I want to, or I'm going to make a vlog because I want to, or whatever it is. Always make that time outside of however busy you are with clients, however busy you are with everything else in the world that you're doing and you care about and is important to you. Always make time for you. Right, and people say, "Oh, you work all the time." I think you have actually said this as well. I think you said it yesterday, which I found really funny. But people say to me, "Oh, you work all the time," and yes, I call it work because it technically is, right? But something which a lot of people don't understand is there's two levels of work for me, right? There's, okay, I'm shooting for a client, or I'm talking to a client, or I'm working with a client, right? So they are directly paying me to create a piece of content. Okay, that's one thing. Then there is me working on the business or in the business, right? They're the two things that, if you want to put them in categories, but like on the business is more what I'm doing on YouTube, this kind of thing, the back end, looking at my processes, looking at how I can actually better what I do, and also how am I making my investments? How am I putting the money in that I may have or haven't? Is now a good time to invest? Or is it better for me to sit on money? And if it is, how should I invest that money? And if so, how much am I looking to spend? Blah, 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 etc. Right? But the reason why it seems as if I'm working all the time is because, well, I am, but it's not always stressful work. And the point, and the reason why I mentioned this is because I said something to you, I think yesterday, that I think is really, really important. I don't think mentioned it in content. And that's why I wanted to bring it up today. And it's more about listening to your body, right? Because a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're going to burn out." A lot of people would say to me, "I work 7 days a week, average 10 hours a day, 10 to 12 hours a day," right? And a lot of people would say, "How are you still going? Because you should burn out and you should stop," right? And yes, I have days where I physically don't do anything regarding video or don't do anything regarding content because I can't. My brain doesn't function as that. That's fine, and that happens. But in most cases, your body will tell you before that happens, right? So as long as you listen to your body in the creative process, and the thing is, as long as you look after what you're eating, whether you're exercising, and then how your stress is, and how your sleep is, you'll be fine, right? Because, but if you don't balance all of the above, you're going to that's when you run into problems, right? Yeah. Now, I've been there where I've had pulled all-nighters to get edits done, or pulled all-nighters to do this and do that, and I do it at times when I have to or I want to, or, there's multiple different cases. I can tell you 1,000 different projects where I went up to London on the last train, I came back on the first train, for example, right? I was up all night and I slept all day, right? Or whatever, right? And I wouldn't recommend anyone does that unless they're willing to do it, right? That has to be a very personal decision that you make, and you choose the consequences by making that decision. Trust me, being up all night, not fun. Anyway, but anyway, I think the main point there is it's not necessarily always like, because people are like, oh, you're going to burn out or this or that. That's not necessarily true, because as long as you're careful in how you go about it and you don't over push yourself, because everyone's limit is different, right? Like something which I'm able to do, I've only been able to do because I've been doing it for years and I've been slowly building up to be able to do it for years. But, you know, if you want to get to, say, for example, that point, and that's the thing you want to do and you feel beneficial in doing, then build it up 1 hour at a time, right? I didn't just suddenly go from working 5 hours a day on my business to working 12 hours a day. No, I started by adding an hour every day, right? And then it slowly became, okay, there's more I want to achieve, there's more I want to do, so I have to work out to schedule that time and really work out how do I optimize my time, right? And that's another part of it, is about how you optimizing your time every day. But for me, sleep is very important, food is very important, and exercise is very important. Before work. A lot of people say, oh, you put work for everything. No. Those three things, and then obviously my own hygiene, are more important than anything I do at work at all. Right? Because the main reason why is very simple. If those things are looked after, I can work harder for longer. That's it. Simple as that. So I'll get more done. Right? There is only very specific cases where I will sacrifice one of those for work, because I know it's going to detrimentally affect my work. Right? Now, of course, there is situations like events or whatever, where there is situations where you should probably, if it's a next day turnaround, there is certain situations where you have to be up until 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or not sleep at all to get the project done. Right? But again, it's about, from a client perspective, expecting or setting those expectations. If you don't think you can get it done for the next day, don't commit to getting it done the next day. I only commit to projects I can get done in the next day because I know for a fact that project I can get done for the next day. If I think this project's going to take me a week to edit and edit well, I'll say it's going to be a week. And then they can choose whether that's okay for them or not. Right? You have to just be honest with them and say, look, I could do this, but it's going to be crap. Right? So you either want it good or you want it fast. Sometimes they can be together, and sometimes you can get good and fast, but not all the time. Depends on the project, right? And depends on what was the prep like and etc. in that respect as well. So I think it's an interesting mindset change. And I don't know, in some ways, like, I know I've talked about this on podcasts with others as well, about like the mindset change when you become an entrepreneur more than just someone who's been employed. And that's an interesting thing to explore, I think, for you, if you don't have as much as that mindset as well. But is there like anything specifically which you feel is a specific hurdle that is a kind of like, you want to get to a place, right? You're traveling there, and is there anything physically at the moment that is a hurdle for you right now?
Okay, so one thing that I think is incredibly important is, like you say, learn your own limitations, but reevaluate them as you move on. Don't learn a limitation like, at the moment I'm uploading like once a week or something like that. Don't go, okay, I upload once a week, and then just stick with that. As you progress, look at it and go, okay, so what could you do now? Could you stretch to this? And then you stretch to it, and it's like exercise. Like, you do a little bit more, and then that becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. And then you can move on from there and go to the next step. And there's a couple things that, like, I would like to have, like an external mic on my camera, or a camera that has autofocus while in video and stuff like that. But with my mindset where I'm at the moment, I'm not allowing that to stop me from making stuff. I found problems around it. So where my camera is to the right of my desk, I have like a chest of drawers behind it. And when I'm making a gaming video or video in my room, I put a mirror there so that I can look in the mirror and see if the screen is on, if it's in focus, and things like that. So there's like not allowing barriers to stop you from what you're doing, but allowing barriers to allow you to grow and think of new ways to solve solutions is something that I'm working relatively hard at the moment. Um, like, obviously, this won't be in there, but my boom pole at the moment that my mic's connected to, my dad found it in the garage the other day and then was like, "Would you like a boom pole?" I was like, "That would be lovely, thank you." And then it's like, as if you work hard enough, you will be not so much gifted by other people, but gifted by things that happen to you. It could be you're walking down the street and somebody's lost a memory card, like in front of you. So then you give them back your memory card, and then they say, "Oh, thank you very much. What's your Instagram, or would you like to shoot together one day?" You've made a connection with somebody else, and you can build from there. Um, all of the stuff that I have, I'm quite lucky with. Like, the camera that I use is my dad's, but he allows me to use it when I need it, to make videos. The lenses that I use are his, except one lens, and things like that. And it's like I can use them and learn what I can do with them, but then when you reach where you think you can stop with a particular item, you then look at what you could do with something else. So the first camera I ever had was a power shot. It's over on the other side of my room. I can't remember exactly which one it was. I bought it for £10 off of a good mate of mine at the time, and for like the first 4 months of me having it, I was just all the time like taking pictures and taking little videos with it. And then after a while, I put it down because I was a bit like, okay, what can I do now? And then I stopped for a while, and then I was not so much gifted, but allowed to use a 10D from my brother, and that allowed me to take my photos further a little bit. And then I was not gifted, but allowed to use by my dad the camera that I'm using at the moment, and it allows you to progress, but not let the fact that, like, I don't have a mic, I'm not going to make videos with audio. It's not about that. It's about going, I don't have a mic, but I'm going to make content anyway because it will allow me to improve. And then maybe in the future, I'll get a mic, and then I'll get a little bit more. And it's one thing that people have to realize is that when you start a business or a YouTube channel, for instance, you're not going to have everything that you want immediately. And being able to work with what you've got and work it beyond where you think you could, and push the boundaries with what you've got and what you think you can do mentally, is something that I find really interesting, and I think it's really important for other people to understand.
No, absolutely. I think that understanding that it's not what you don't have, it's the limitations you have, and learning how to, as you said, fix those problems, but to still be able to create the content. Because the reality of the fact is, it doesn't matter, someone could give me a red, but if I don't know how to shoot a video, I still can't shoot a video, right? Even if I'm holding a red, right? A lot of people's dream cameras, including me, right? Is a lot of people's dream cameras, right? Is basically, for those who don't know, who will be in this part of the podcast, a red's basically worth a deposit on a house, pretty much, right? And the thing is, like, you can give me that camera or something that's a lot less or a lot more, but if I don't know how to use a camera, I don't know how to storytell, I don't know how to create content, I'm still not going to be able to use it to the capabilities that camera can do, right? And the same is true with anything regarding audio, regarding anything. If you don't know how to perform, it doesn't matter how well it sounds, right? Like, it doesn't. If you don't know how to come across and push your message or articulate your message correctly, or the correct way for you and how you want to say it in that respect as well, you're still not going to be able to do it, right? It doesn't matter if I give you a microphone and I give you a camera and I give you everything that you would possibly need to create that piece of content. You still are not going to be able to create that piece of content because at the end of the day, you are the brain behind the content, right? You are the person who's going to speak about the content, say the content, speak the content, perform the content, whatever, and it's important to understand that very early on, I would say, because then you don't get up to going, oh, I don't have the latest lens, I don't have the latest camera, I don't have the latest microphone, I don't have the latest this, that. You learn to work with what you have instead of wishing you had other stuff, right? But also, it then allows you, when you are in opportunity, to say, okay, so I'm doing college. Do I want to get a part-time so then I can earn money, so then I can actually get that mic, so then I can actually get that lens, so then I can actually get that camera? How much is that worth? How much? And then how do I go for that? And then you validate those things and you think, okay, well then, what is the best investment, right, of my time? Because at the end of the day, for most of what people do, you either trade time for money or you have time, right? You're either broke and you have time, or you're not so broke, but you don't have time, right? That's why time, because there's only so much time in a day, right? So you either trade some of that time for money, which you then use to buy materialistic things such as microphones, cameras, etc., or you can use that time effectively. And that's why not being in a position where, or getting yourself into a position where you're not as concerned about finances, especially when you're living at home, is very, very beneficial, because it can give you this huge amount of time to experiment, create content, to learn, to grow, and to build on what you already have, right? Again, as you building off what you were saying as well. So I think that's very, very important. I think it's kind of, in some ways, has been a misconception for a while that quite a lot of people can't create films or can't run a production company because you don't have a Red, for example, or you don't have, I have no idea, insert your favorite camera here, right? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And, there's this constant debate within photographers and videographers as well about, what do you shoot? Why do you shoot that brand? Why do you shoot with this lens? Why do you shoot that? And to be honest, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. The only things that matter is the story good? Is the content enjoyable? And then, of course, there's some technical things that you should probably get right. But to be honest, if it doesn't sound absolutely painful to listen to, no one's going to care. You can have complete blur, and as long as what you're saying is good enough, and how you're saying it is good enough, and what it actually sounds like it's good enough, then no one else is going to care. Of course, the visuals are bonus, and of course, the better you can make them, the higher the production quality will look, and the better it will look overall, and I would argue in some ways, the better you will come across. But still, it's not the key point. That's why I say a lot of content is down to the content itself. Because I can make something look good, but if the content's still bad, I can't make the content good. Right? Because if the content's bad, the content's bad. Doesn't matter how well I shoot it or how well it sounds or how well it's... Because all I'm going to do is enhance what you can already say. Right? Like, how I see video a lot is I'm just going to allow you to speak to a greater audience and speak your message louder than you otherwise could. That's all I do. That's it. In a simple term, that's what a videographer or a marketer or whoever you hire to do your marketing, social media, whatever, or create content is doing. That's their job. To allow you to take your message and put it to more people. In a base level, that's it. Right? There's, of course, a lot more that goes into it about how and why and etc. But at a base level, that's what they do. Right? So when you understand that, there's not a lot that can get in your way. And when you decide that you are the only person that's going to stand between where you are now and where you want to be, it also will allow you to be in a position where not a lot is going to get in your way. Yeah, you won't get there, the way you probably thought you'll get there, but that's fine, right? But you will, if you are driven to get there and you are going to say, I don't have an option to fail. I don't care if it takes me 6 years. I'm not going to quit until I get there. You'll get there. From what I found, right? And that's the kind of promise I made 3 years ago of, you are going to pursue this. I don't care how hard it's going to get. You are going to pursue it until you are successful. Because Failure is part of it, yes, but overall, I'm going to quit and not do this is not an option, right? When you find the right thing, it's not an option because it doesn't even come into your brain. You just see them as hurdles or things or bumps in the road, right? They're not massive concrete slabs you can't get through or can't get round or can't get over or can't get through, right? And yes, there's times where even I will still feel like I have no idea how to get through this problem, right? COVID was a clear one, right? A very obvious one for a lot of people. But sometimes they take long. The solutions to get around problems that big take time, right? I don't know whether you listened to episode 3 of the podcast, but I talk about the first month of COVID. I basically didn't work at all for the first month of COVID. But I still was like, right, okay, you've had this time away to think about what you want to do and how you want to do it. So from this date, you're going to start work again. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do for work. And absolutely no idea. I was like, all my clients are shut. I can't think of anything to shoot. I'm not allowed to go outside. What am I going to do? I was like, right, okay. So from, I think it was the 1st of April, I said, you are going to go back to work from the 1st of April, whether you like it or not. Right? So that's what I did. And then it just started that process again. It started the ball rolling again and allowed me to find things I could do with the limitations I found myself in. And I think that's very important to find a way. And also don't beat yourself up when you spend, like I'm sure you'll get to a point or you did get to points of COVID or whatever. I use COVID as the easy example because it's one that a lot of people can relate to, but it could be anything where you're like, right, okay, at this point in my life, I couldn't do X, Y, and Z, right? Or, whatever. It could be someone dying, could be, whatever. It could be 1,000 different things. But putting a line in the sand and saying from this date onwards, you're going to go back to work is very important, I found. And having that discipline to then do it, no matter when you wake up. Because I think I woke up on the day and go, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. I did it anyway, right? Because it was important for me to take that first step back into the process of working, right? And now I look back on it and go, I'm so proud of what I achieved from that point forward, right? And what I've been able to do and things I've been able to launch and ideas I've been able to do and the things I've been able to fine tune and the opportunities that I've actually been able to come from those things. Half of them are things I couldn't even tell you was going to happen a year ago. Because I was like, that's insane. That's crazy. No way. Right? But now I don't, I say I don't get surprised. I do. I still do get surprised. I'm still a little bit kind of shell-shocked in some ways. But it's not as surprising because I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. Okay, but what about that other thing? Right? There's always the next thing that I'm trying to strive for. But it's about getting that ball rolling, right? Like, there is sometimes times where you get stuck and you just stop. And it just, like, there's some things that just punch you so hard in the gut, you just get floored for a week to 2 to 3, right? But also being okay with yourself and saying that's okay and understanding that that's okay can be very, very powerful, I found. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's important to note for everybody watching and all people in general is that, like, the way that things work is momentum. The hardest part is starting from nothing. When you start from nothing, you have nothing. There is nothing that can possibly kick it into 8th gear and just start going. You have to put it into 1st, into 2nd, and work hard and get it going just a little bit. And then once it goes a little bit and it will continue going, it snowballs. And eventually, like, for instance, say you start at 0 subscribers, you then get 100. That's the first 100 is supposedly the hardest to get because you're starting from nothing. You then are starting from scratch. There is nobody that is kind of like helping you grow, for instance. And then once you get to 100, you've got, say, 100 people like sharing your stuff around. So then that's 100 people more than you had in the first place. And it's not to say that getting channels, or not specifically channels, but getting anything that seems off in the distance is easy when you have got a bigger audience or more momentum, but it's keeping the work that you do and keeping your determination to do what you want to do is what allows you to get better at your craft.
No, exactly. And I think that's definitely true. And I think it's very important for people to, I say this to business owners all the time. I'm like, look, we could do one video, but I'll tell you right now, it won't do anything for you. Talk, a waste of everyone's time. It's not going to do anything for you. The way content works and why content works is because you are consistently doing high quality content and putting it out all the time, right? Not all the time, but like enough, right? Like, so if that's once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, whatever it is, you know, but build up, you know, what you were talking about as well. You know, if you want to start saying, right, I want to create 1 video a week. Okay, start 1 video a week. That's fine. And then when you get comfortable with doing 1 video a week and you've optimized that point to do, like, for example, I edit and film podcasts in batches, right? Like, we're sat here recording episode 25 and I don't think even episode 14's come out yet, right? Like, but in regards to like edits, I edit the podcast in 3s, right? So I will edit episode 15, 16, 17 all together. So I know that I'm good for another, or even 4, if depending on time, but even 4. So then I know I'm good for another month, right, on podcasts. Then I do the same with every Wednesday video, right? Like, I can tell you already what's going to be out next Wednesday, the following Wednesday, and the Wednesday after, and the Wednesday after. Because I know, right? Because they're already shot. Some of them might not be edited, but they're already shot, right? And then, in most cases, I already have plans or am working on the scripts or the pre-production for the stuff that comes after that, right? And it's about overly being prepared. And this is, of course, like when you get higher level or quote-unquote higher level of content creation, because it is hard work, right? It is, and that's why I have to spend all my time working, because between everything I have to do for clients and everything I want to do, there is no other time left in the day, right? If I'm not going to sacrifice sleep, exercise, hygiene, and food, right? There is no other time. So I use all the other time as effectively as I possibly can to be able to create those other pieces of content that I love to create and that I can see benefit in creating long term. And also, because everyone has to look at revenue at some point, will probably all of them have a way of making me revenue in one way or another, right? Like, every series I have right now has a potential to earn me revenue outside of the AdSense on the video, right? So there's, and I never try to do a piece of content, or I never try to do anything that's only got one chance at making me money, right? Like, and the concept of building a following is always something that will be beneficial to your business in some way or another, because even if it's just sending more people to your shopfront, that will have a net result on your income at some point. It might take a year, might take 2, but it's still going to have a net positive result on your income, right? So yeah, I mean, no, that was interesting. I think what we'll do, because I'm just kind of looking at the time, how long this one's been, and I think this is the kind of conversation we will have for as long as I let it, right? Or as long as we let it happen. So is there any closing thoughts, anything which you wanted to mention, that you wanted to bring up that we haven't talked about? And also, for those who may be interested in seeing your vlog, seeing your progression, seeing what you're up to, where can people find you that may not know of you?
Okay, so I think for things that we haven't said already, I think I'm sure you will notice, but I've just kind of like gone off on tangents whilst we've been talking. So I'm not gonna touch on that so much, because I'll probably just sprout another big conversation. But yeah, but as regards to finding me and finding my content, on YouTube, my name is Whillan14. Pretty hard to spell. It's WWHILLAN14. And then on Instagram, with my photos and shorter videos, it's the real Whillan14, which I did as a joke, by the way. When I was making YouTube videos back in the day. God, back in the day, who am I? When I was making YouTube videos back when I was before, I set my name as a joke, the real Willam14. But yeah,
That's that's cool
that's
to
it.
hear. But no, thank you so much for coming on. And as I say, I'm sure there will be
Yeah.
other content or other collaboration opportunities in the future. I can't tell you what those will be because I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow or next week. Never mind what I'm going to do in a year. But there's I think there's definitely going to be room as you progress and as I progress and as Sam and you progress and etc. as well. There's definitely going to be merit, and I think there'll be I'm always down for open collaborations and finding ways to collaborate with people who are like yourself, the quote unquote starting out, because in some ways I like some people would say I'm not starting out, but also I still see myself as someone still starting out in comparison to where I want to be, right? And I think you'll find the same in a year to 2 to 3 to 4 in that respect as well. So yeah. Thank you so much for joining me and Willan on this wonderful conversation. We talked about a lot of things I think is really, really valuable, especially for those of you who are in a situation where you're just starting out or just looking to start creating some content or start creating or looking to create or looking to go into something that you're really, really passionate about and are going to love to do. So yeah, that is going to wrap up this week's podcast, guys. Do appreciate you coming back, and I would love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. And if you are new to the channel and would like not to miss next week's podcast, make sure to be subscribed to the channel. And I'll see you on Wednesday for a brand new video where we're going to be doing something exciting. I have no idea what it's going to be yet, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon.